You're good.
All right, welcome to the AFTW meeting for July. We are recording this, and if you can, please do us the favor of muting yourself if you're not actively attempting to communicate with us, so it doesn't get noisy with the many different folks in here, all with our mics open. And if you have any questions, you can definitely raise your hand, or if you want to ask a question in a chat, and we can get to it as time develops. My name is Brent Crow. I'm not a leader of this group. I am simply just the moderator for today. For those who are new to AFTW, it is a leaderless group. This is simply a forum of safety training professionals that are safety focused individuals who are in our Arizona state interested in safe aviation, preventing accidents and incidents. And of course, one of the best ways of doing that is just to get together and discuss any issues and risks, hazards, and such that we see. So that's kind of the general philosophy here. If you are looking for wings credit, just make sure to post your FAAsafety.gov email address that you use to register for your FAA safety account in the chat function. Just post your email there and we'll make sure to give you credit. Let's see, also here on the call with me, John Keith, are you here? I think he's here.
I'm here.
All right, cool. Yeah, if you could just help monitor the chat. If there's questions you want to interrupt me, please do so.
I'll do the best I can for the time I can spend with you guys.
And I got you covered after you go.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Jim. So to kick off, let's see, we also just want to let you know, if you don't know where to find us, aftw.org, or you can check out our Facebook page. It's AZFTW for our Arizona Facebook site. Okay, to start off with on our agenda, we're going to switch things around a little bit this time. We have Stacy Elliott, who's going to present briefly on some of the new stack or other stack maybe you haven't heard of at Coolidge. Okay, stand by, Stacy, while I bring up Stacy. If you want to introduce yourself real quick to those who may not know you, I'll bring up your slide.
Appreciate it. I'm Stacy Elliott. I'm the University of North Dakota Aerospace Foundation Safety Advisor flying out of Gateway Airport. Many years ago, we also already had a Rocco procedures stack that was mirrored from the Stanfield procedures. When about a year ago, new GPS 2.3 approaches into Coolidge Airport were changed. And what we had previously written did not match what was currently the approach. Bottom line is Rocco used to be the final approach fix, and now it's a place called Dare, which is about 7 nautical miles to the north east of Rocco. So it added about 7 miles. So we took those procedures down and rewrote them through the course of the year now. Several different iterations of professionals looking at it. And we think we're down to what we believe is going to be a good set of procedures. This is just the key points. This is not the entire procedure. The entire procedure is like 50 pages long for people to look at. It has diagrams and pictures and examples of what should be done. But what I did here for this briefing, I just highlighted some of the key points. So the first one is we use Stanfield and the old Rocco procedures as our guide. And the second one is Dare, which is the new holding area, if you will, is, like I said, 7 miles to the west, so a total of about 10 miles or so, 13 miles to the east. And it starts at 5,800 and goes up only to 7,500. Now, above that is going to have conflicts with anything doing approaches into the Bravo airspace. And so it was a long and drawn out procedure, but what I found out from the FAA is they would prefer that we not do anything established above 7,500. So we can be at 7,500, we can hold there, we can stack people up. Now this is obviously just pilot controlled and during VFR conditions that we would stack, just like we do over at Stanfield. If it was IFR conditions, obviously we'd be under the control of a controller. So we're going to start at 5,800. That's when you begin your approach, and then you go on down to your approach. Now you do pass by a waypoint or a fix called Rocco still. And so Rocco is still in the same spot it was in the past. So that presented a second set of problems. If people didn't want to go all the way to the stack and stack up there and come in, we knew lots of people were just going to do radar vectors to Rocco and then turn their students inbound. So we do say that radar vectors are something that's going to happen. Remember, we can't restrict people from doing what they want to do. This is just what we think is going to be the best practices. So yes, radar vectors are still done there, but we ask that you give way to the traffic coming from Dare, because they're already on their approach. And if you conflict with them, then you're messing up another flight school or another paired training. And we really wouldn't want that. So adjust your timing to come in well in front of someone coming from Dare, or come in behind them is what we ask. Now, the other unique thing that happened when we looked at everything was missed approaches. Because GPS 23 also has opposite direction traffic from runway 5 or runway 17 and 35. We wanted to make sure that there was at least a little bit of understanding for if you're coming in on GPS 23, what should you do if the other runways are active? So what we have there is, if runway 5 is in use, initiate the alternative missed approach procedure 1 mile past Mafoy. Now Mafoy is in between Rocco and the runway. It's approximately 2 to 3 miles away to the east. You're passing right through it. So we thought the best thing would be do as a right turn, because of the parachute drop area, if you make a left-hand turn, because obviously you don't want to have a head-on with someone using runway 5 already. If runway 23 is in use, so the one you're using, initiate the published missed approach procedure if you're going to, but be aware of VFR traffic in the pattern. So be very careful if you're going missed, and start to climb out. But then if 17, which is the perpendicular runway, if 17 or 35 is in use, initiate the published missed approach procedure and make sure to climb above the TPA as soon as possible. Therefore, you won't conflict with their downwind or even their crosswind. So knowing these key points, I think when you go through and look through all of the slides, you'll kind of understand what we're talking about and have a better idea. I propose that we go ahead and put this back on the website, labeled as comments or community input or something like that, and put one of the addresses, either AFTW or the mapping, the charting email address on there, so people can send their comments. And then I'll collect the comments for the next meeting we have. We'll present the comments to see if there's changes that'll be needed. What do you think, Jim or Brent? Or anybody for that matter?
Well
Sounds good to
done.
me.
Well done, and thank you for doing this. It's one of those situations where, you know, there's so many variables. It's difficult to make everyone happy and to plan for every situation. I think you and your team have done a great job looking at all of the elements. I say we go ahead and just put it out there, like everything we put out there, and comments are always welcome right through the website, aftw.org. And if anyone has any comments right now, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I guess that's right. We always welcome comments. It's not like the final version.
It's not, exactly. Is anything we do ever done?
That's true. We're always getting better, right?
Cool.
Okay, so if I don't hear any objections, then I'm going to say that we just go ahead and publish it like Jim said. Any objections? Okay.
All right.
Obviously,
Don't see anything in
if something
comments or anything.
if something is horribly wrong, of course, we'll make changes and make it very bold that these are changes.
So send the file over to me, Stacy. I will get it on the website when I can. Probably what'll happen first is I will put a link in our Facebook group, so people can get the PDF version of it there. And I think we decided to stick with PDFs on these just so it's easy on everyone's EFBs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And make sure you name it something without my name in it, because right now the file that I
Will
sent you
do.
has my name in it because it was my version.
Got it.
All right, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you.
I'm gonna, how do I stop sharing my screen? There we go. Okay, moving on to next order of business. Hang on, my screens again. Okay, I guess we'll move over to, sorry, one of my screens just went black. All right, there we go. It's back. We'll move on to talking about airport related issues. The only thing I have on the agenda that was suggested is we have Brian Chevlin here from United Aviate Academy out of Goodyear. And Brian, if you'd like to share just what your organization does as far as flying in and out of Goodyear and flows, traffic flows, patterns, that sort of stuff, that'd be helpful for the group who may not be familiar with the operations.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I had something to present, but I don't.
I'll put up the Rainbow Valley practice area. I'm just grabbing it here, give people something to look at.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Jim. So in and out of Goodyear, we fly standardized departures and arrivals, and I can kind of describe those to the group here. And then one thing that we do in the Southwest practice area, this was a recommendation, or in the Rainbow Valley practice area, this was a recommendation from Luke Approach. They came out to our school. It's not in the SATR, but they want to hear from us. So we've been getting flight following from Luke in the entirety of the Rainbow Valley practice area. And they give traffic calls to non-participating aircraft as well. John Keith, I'm not sure if you guys are doing that. You're muted.
We are not doing that.
Okay. So, and I'm not sure if the schools from Glendale are doing that either, but
I haven't heard anything from them.
okay. Luke is definitely adamant that they want to hear from us. They appreciate it. They can see us on radar all the way as far east as the Estrellas and as far west as, well west of Buckeye. The only blank spot would be behind the white tanks, kind of where that transition from 125.45 in the south, 118.15 up north in the northwest. But they appreciate hearing from us. I propose and suggest that everybody in the Rainbow Valley practice area contact Luke for flight following. I think it's a great aid for situational awareness and traffic avoidance.
Not everybody has two radios to be able to do that.
That's true. That is true. But I mean, even if you have one radio, if we're talking to Luke, then everybody's on the same frequency.
Then why have Rainbow Valley?
Agreed.
That's what we're here to discuss.
I don't disagree with that at all. I don't think that the Rainbow Valley frequency is necessary. I mean, most of my flight training's been out of Deer Valley. Most of my instruction's been out of Deer Valley. We would always fly west into Luke, into the SATR. And I just think the situational awareness aspect of it, the reduced miscommunications, and the increased set of eyes for traffic avoidance increases safety.
Keep in mind that Luke is often very part-time. So there's plenty of holidays and weekends and times of day that the SATR's not active and they're not there to help. So having a Rainbow Valley practice area that's separate from the other practice areas is still valuable.
Correct.
But
Yeah, and there are some radar holes, I think, out there, like behind the Estrellas. I know if you're below like 3,000, they're not going to see you.
yeah. But I think, Carrie, this is a good time for you to jump in and share an update of what's going on with practice area frequencies, because it's all part of the same discussion.
Okay. Let me see if I can share my.
Yeah, let me
screen.
stop sharing. It should let you. We do have a lot of new people today. Carrie, go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right, I'm Kerry Grant. I'm president of the Arizona Aviation Safety Advisory Group, also a CFI. And I have an airplane out at Deer Valley. So retired United Airlines and retired Air Force, and I've been instructing here in the Valley since the early 80s, being an instructor out at Williams Gateway when it was Williams Air Force Base. So let me get over here to this screen. All right, so what we have been working on, if you're not familiar with the practice areas here, there are 2 practice area frequencies, and the dividing line has been right through the center lines of Sky Harbor. To the north is 122.75, and to the south is 122.85. In addition to that, there were 2 other practice areas. Rainbow Valley is the one we're talking about right now, down south of Goodyear through the Gap, and it used to be down towards the Lufthansa airport called Mobile, which is now Bishop, and it's owned by Dillon Aeromotive, which is the reloading people, but they do a lot of heavy equipment drops, stuff like that down in Mobile. That frequency, Rainbow Valley, and the other frequency that was out to the west and north of Palo Verde were owned by Lufthansa and the training school there. Well, that school has pretty much gone away. The Rainbow Valley frequency, my understanding, has been picked up from Lufthansa and has moved over to the Aviate Academy. That frequency, unlike 2275 and 2285, which are air-to-air frequencies, and in the FARs, 128925 is actually a leased frequency from Aviation Spectrum Resources Incorporated, and it's meant as a air-to-ground frequency. That's just a little bit background on that frequency. What ASAC has been trying to do for many years here, and it started out with Terry Brandt, who was a DPE and has passed away, and we picked it up, was we realized there was a lot of congestion on the training frequencies. 2275, there was a mid-air collision up there some years ago between West Wind and I think it was Transpac at the time. That was their current name. They're now AeroGuard. But a West Wind airplane at 5,000 feet, high wing 172, turned right, and the AeroGuard airplane, low wing 5,000 feet, turned left, and they collided just around, just south of Lake Pleasant there, with 4 fatalities. We've had mid-airs in the south practice area as well on 122.85. Fortunately, those did not result in fatalities. So there's the practice areas are really congested as far as radio traffic. And as part of AFTW's efforts to standardize all the radio calls, the places out there. So Stacy and Brent, other people here have gone through. So if you hear somebody out there at the green fields in the south practice area, those are on the AFTW overlay that you can download and put in ForeFlight as a .kml file. I don't know if other EFBs have that capability to import the KML file, but I know ForeFlight definitely does. And anytime I get a chance, any of the seminars, instructors, if you're not familiar with AFTW and the stack procedures particularly, but I make a point of emphasizing the practice areas so that we're standardized and we're all knowing what the call outs are and where we're at, what frequencies we're using. ASAG's efforts have been to codify the practice areas and the frequencies that will be used. And we've been working at this now again since Terry Brandt started it way back in the early 2000s. And what we're going to do is divide the practice areas into 4 quadrants. There'll be a northeast, northwest, southwest, southeast. These will be published quadrants, and the frequencies are allocated by the FCC and the FAA Spectrum Office. So the Rainbow Valley frequency will go away. There'll be a southwest quadrant, which, and if you can see my screen that's up here, we have gone through this, and with feedback from Stacy Ellett, been a big part of this. Brent, I think you've had a chance to look at it. And the practice areas will be within this quadrant, these quadrants, the 4 quadrants. So up in the northwest, it hugs right along the southern border of the Prescott area, goes way out just to the edge of the restricted areas and the MOAs. And then in the southwest, right along the edge of the restricted areas, all the way down to just north of the Tucson training areas, and then over towards Picacho Peak. Up along I-10 and follows I-17 up to the north. So the dividing lines were really from the north, I-17 on one side, and in the south, I-10 on the other. If we look over way out here on the southwest quadrant, it goes way out past San Carlos and up in the northeast quarter, just south of Payson in that area. So these quadrants are a lot bigger than what's currently being used for the practice areas, but they're there for future growth. And the practice areas as AFTW has them today will fit almost entirely within the quadrants that we have set up, except for one small change right here in the southwest quadrant where it actually follows I-10 a little bit, if you see my cursor there, right? So that's the plan, and we are about ready to submit this to the FCC for codification. And what that also means is, like they've done in the Los Angeles area, these frequencies will be published on the chart so that people in the practice areas will know what frequencies to be listening to. So that's the status of the project. Lee Unger has picked this up. She has done a tremendous amount of work on that. She can't be here today, but that's the status of the project.
Excellent. Thank you, Kerry. Anybody have any questions for Kerry?
A quick question. So just to understand this, like the pilots don't necessarily need to know the specific boundaries that these frequencies are approved for. This is just the technical data that was required for you guys to submit the proposal. Is that right, Kerry?
That is correct.
Okay.
And then, you know, we, AFTW, can put the practice areas, align them anywhere within those quadrants. Of course, each quadrant will have a dedicated frequency allocated by the FCC.
What do you expect the timing is as it goes through the continuing process?
You know, we don't have a timeline from the FCC on what we've been working with the FAA Spectrum Office on this. So we've got buy-in on it, and I'm hoping it will be in short order, but until we submit it, we really don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update. Great work. So it sounds like we have a question for the group, which is until we have these new frequencies, what is going to be the AFTW's recommended procedure for Rainbow Valley? So Brian, you still here with us?
Yes, I am. I'm still here.
Yeah, so United Aviate is proposing that when Luke is active, SATR radar services are available, that everyone who operates in the current Rainbow Valley get on with Luke and squawk and talk. And then I'm proposing that when the SATR is not active, Luke is closed, that we use the current Rainbow Valley frequency until it gets replaced in the future. Anyone disagree with that? Now's the time to speak up.
I'm not comfortable with that, because you're gonna, unless we really advertise all the independent instructors and schools at Glendale, that is what the policy is. We've had Rainbow Valley published for years and years and years, and now we're going to change it.
Brian, how has it been recently with all of the Varneys on with Luke and everyone else on Rainbow Valley? How have you guys had any conflicts that you know of?
No, we haven't. In fact, our reports of near mid-airs have decreased dramatically since we've been getting flight following. Luke points out all the non-participating traffic to us. Obviously, they can't communicate with that airplane, but we're aware of them. So I firmly believe it increases safety, including in the Northwest.
John, did you have something?
Unfortunately, I mean, I love Brian to death. I'm not here to beat him up or beat anybody else up, but in the practice area, we've seen the opposite. We've got a sheet of paper that we write down with frequencies from pilots that are non-participating with call outs or not being on frequency. Until my accident, I know me and some of the instructors here, we've actually had to avoid doing maneuvers until we can either get well clear of the Varney aircraft in the practice area. If he's seeing that his numbers are going down and the near misses are going down, okay, we're not seeing that on our end. It's not hit or miss. It's just when Luke's open, they're not talking at all, and we're not talking to them, and it does cause, I want to say some issues, but I want to be cautious when I say a lot, because I don't think it's a lot. I think it just depends on the day. It depends on the volume that's out there. But we've had to alter our flights, where we're going and what we're doing out there when United's also out there at the same time.
So my pushback to you on that is, why not amend the procedures to get everybody squawking and talking?
There was a couple days ago, mid May or beginning of June, where some of the Varney guys were out there flying around and Luke was closed and they weren't on Rainbow Valley. And then we landed and I saw one of them that was coming to the FBO over here where Fly Goodyear's at. Hey, you guys were on our frequency. And they go, well, no, we're told to monitor Luke all the time. And it was on a weekend when Luke was closed. There are some times where we do hear the Varneys when Luke is closed, because some of the instructors have that of going back over to Rainbow Valley. I think it's just more of the educational side of teaching the students and the solos to say, hey, if this is closed, you've got to be on 128.925 that we have now. And if they're open, if that's what they're requiring, they go to Luke. But there seems to be some miscommunication with some of, not all of them. And again, it depends on the frequency. It doesn't happen all the time. But just being extra cautious and extra careful and doing the whole see and avoid.
No, and that's completely fair. I have a CFI meeting today, and I'm going to bring that up, that when Luke is closed, we need to be on Rainbow Valley for sure.
Okay.
Let me ask, why did Luke approach you about contacting them and getting flight following?
They reached out. They wanted to set up, quarterly or 3 times a year meetings with us, with CFIs, for educational reasons about their MOAs and operations. But they reached out primarily wanting us to get on with them because of all the military traffic transitioning between the restricted areas up by Gila Bend and into
exactly. And did you guys understand the amount of traffic that Luke has between Gila Bend, Gila Bend, Ox, and proceeding back towards Luke before you started flying out in that airspace?
Yes, I was aware of it, but there were a lot of unfamiliar new pilots for sure.
So Luke was looking for a solution to avoiding mid-airs caused by the Varney operation.
Correct.
And if you guys had educated your pilots to begin with, they wouldn't have to be reaching out.
Sure, but I mean, again, I'm not seeing the harm in getting radar service when radar service is available.
If you've got, I I think that if the airplanes have the capability to do both frequencies, they should be on Rainbow Valley announcing their positions. And if they can get flight following, I don't have a problem with that. But you've got a lot of airplanes, training airplanes out there that do not have two radios, and they're going to be on Rainbow Valley frequencies, making their call outs per the standardized position reports that we put up on AFTW.
I disagree with the two radio idea, Gary. I don't think that that's practical or feasible to expect them to maintain communication with Luke and broadcast on an air-to-air or air-to-ground, in this case, practice area frequency. And do flight instruction and do maneuvers. I don't think that's practical. I think we need to, as a group, and I don't think we're going to decide today, and that's fine. We're here to discuss it. But I think we need to set a standard of either getting everyone on with Luke or not. And by sheer volume of traffic, hold on one sec. By sheer volume of traffic, United Aviate Academy is, I mean, whatever they decide, I think the AFTW needs to follow because they're the ones that, I mean, they're only growing out there. Brian, I hate to put you on the spot, but off the top of your head, can you give us any numbers of your current size and what you project in the next several months, several years?
I'm not sure about the daily operations, but as far as number of students we currently have, we just got a new class of 30 today. So we have about 180 students. We're looking to be above 220 by the end of the year. And then next year, we're going to be up to 500.
There's another comment. Go ahead.
Regarding Luke, I'm James Modest, by the way. I'm the acting chief over at Glendale. Prior to all the pandemic and everything, we were going to be operating. And the approach from Luke, traffic management, was regarding, it's of course, it's safety. You know, it's got some young pilots and some F-35s out there, and they need to see and avoid and practice some good situational awareness. The frequency issue was solved when they and us, we came up with the idea to have the standardized departures and arrivals into and from Rainbow Valley, as well as the Northwest practice area. So it's something, and that was 2019 when they approached us. But since then, of course, with the world conditions, we don't have our students, they're not allowed through the points of entry. It's not as dense as it could be because our classes are around between 16 and 30 also. I just wanted to interject that wasn't the reason why Luke it's a safety issue, and the frequency, I would challenge anyone to say if positive radar control isn't better than in a highly dense environment, it is clearly a better idea. All right, I just wanted to say that.
I also wonder from learning experiences of the past with, like, we've toiled with the idea of contacting approach instead of being on practice area frequency, but the sheer volume and number of aircraft when you call up and want flight following, and every time you call, all that you get is standby. Call me back in 5 minutes, and you're just kind of left hanging and out to dry. So I don't know what the volume expectancy from Luke approach is in that area. Are they expecting to handle just 10 airplanes? Are they expecting to handle 30, or what their max is? And if this practice area is currently already at its max volume, or is there room to grow? I don't know if anybody can answer that question or not.
I mean, I will say with peak operations out of Deer Valley, when there were 450,000 takeoffs and landings there, and everybody from Westwind and AeroGuard were going out into the Saturn to the Northwest, they were handling it just fine.
Time instructor over at Lufthansa, and I must say that their operating procedure was the practice area frequencies. If they pass down that gouge to United, they're probably going to be resistant to the frequency change. However, I can't call it for them, but I know that we'll be using the Rainbow Valley area and looking to be on Luke's frequency quite often.
Yeah, and regarding Lufthansa's operations, we have meetings with them quite frequently, and they're on board with our procedures. We're going to be training Lufthansa students starting, I believe, early next year. So we're working together with them.
It seems to me that maybe there ought to be a meeting that would include AFTW, somebody from our organization, to just sit down and work through this thing and come up with a joint decision instead of an individual operator, create the rules for everybody. It seems like maybe it would be a good sit around the table and figure it out.
Yeah,
I think there could be, some sort of a little working group that just needs to be formed, probably between United Aviate, Luke Approach, folks out of Glendale and such like that. So I don't know if there's an aviation safety rep, a fast team rep or something on that side of town that might be able to host that for everyone, or it might be one of those groups. That would be my recommendation.
Well, and Brent, it just doesn't include, look at CAE. How many students do you have transiting through on their way out to Gila Bend?
Yeah, I mean, we possible have a couple aircraft out there as well. Probably not to the scale that other folks have, but we do send some student solos over to Gila Bend and out that direction.
Yeah, so
there's probably 5 to 10 CAE planes that come through Goodyear getting fuel on the way either to or from.
Yep.
And I know that those guys, it's not rare to hear them on there, but it's not as prevalent as some of us would like them to be, I guess.
Well, I think that this is an issue that I think AFTW we need to be standardized on what we're going to do here. And I think the idea of a working group is a good idea. Because it's going to affect all the schools in the valley that use that southwest quadrant. It's just not Varney. So,
All right. Well, Brent, I'm a fast team rep, so I'm not saying that I'll lead the group, but I will help put the group together. How's that? So anyone on this live meeting or watching this recording, send an email to Jim@JimPittman.com if you are interested in being on the working group for Rainbow Valley, figuring out procedures and what the AFTW's official stance is going to be. Again, Jim@JimPittman.com. I'll put it in for everyone at the live meeting. The only trick is one T in Pittman. Back to you, Brent.
Cool. Yeah, I was going to suggest now thinking about, well, we could probably host remote meetings rather than having to travel to the other side of Phoenix. I might be able to help too, but I'll be out of town the next week and a half, so it's going to be delayed if I'm trying to host and put it together. But okay. I'll go ahead and move us to the rest of the agenda. There's not much left here. So Jim, do you want to talk about your practice approach procedures?
There's not much to say. We left it on the agenda, but tell you what, if you could copy that link if you got the chat up, go ahead and drop it in the chat just because I'm in the middle of this other message. But basically anyone, especially flight instructors, instrument flight instructors that would like to help us finish this project. It's been ongoing for a while and frankly, it's kind of stalled out. And you can look at it here. Brent just posted the Google Doc link. You can go look at that. And basically it's meant to be a resource, especially for flight instructors that come from out of town, new to the area, recommended procedures, some do's and don'ts, some of the things we've learned from the School of Hard Knocks over the years. So, so thank you, Brent, for that. Not really any news though. Okay, cool. The last thing I have here to discuss is actually got 2 more things to discuss. We got an email to the AFTW group, and it was an email from a local pilot, and it's just kind of a heads up to pilots who may be flying on their own, have their own insurance. This person states that we're members of a small club of 4 members. Recently, our insurance added this requirement that
It is further agreed that any pilot over the age of 75 must be accompanied at all times by another pilot 75 years or younger and meeting the pilot requirements as set forth by the policy. Usually it's just the wife and I on a breakfast run. According to this, we would need to bring along, for want of a better term, a safety pilot. I know the AFTW site is about learning, but this sounds like a barrier to entry for some. I think some of the thoughts we had thrown around through email chatter about this point is just, this isn't really something that AFTW can really do about. This is just, we wanted to share this knowledge. If you have insurance, make sure to check your, your what is it called? But your document, your policy and stuff like that, to make sure that, what are the caveats to your coverage, and make sure that there's not something like this that you're missing. If you did have somebody go up with you that was a quote unquote safety pilot, that's not necessarily the same as what we probably in aviation training realm have heard of the term safety pilot. If you remember from part 61, I think it's 51, where it talks about logging a PIC time when there's more than one pilot required. It's referring to those FAA regulations only and not insurance requirements. So, you wouldn't necessarily be logging a safety pilot or need that type of a log, but I'm not sure what the requirements are for your insurance company to log who's the board and that sort of thing. So just, be thinking about that. Usually safety pilot is required when you're doing simulated instrument conditions, when flight instruction is being provided, or you have somebody who's shooting instrument approaches for practice and they've got a safety pilot sitting next to them in the aircraft so that they can be under the hood and somebody's in charge of seeing and avoid. All right, so any other questions on that? I guess one other point is if you are doing instructional flights with with a safety pilot, just make sure you are documenting what the purpose of the lesson is and the appropriate pilot name in the logbook, that sort of thing.
Just a quick question for the group. Anyone here in the live meeting, have you heard of this requirement of people of a certain age being required to have another pilot on board?
None. It
was news to me.
Yeah, I've never heard of this before, and I reached out to the owner and the chief pilot, and then I reached out to a couple of the friends that work at other schools here in town and elsewhere throughout the country, and they go, "What insurance company did this?" And none of us. I mean, we've got some older guys that do rent, but we've never had to have that option.
Interesting. Yeah, not necessarily directly a flight training safety issue, but we wanted to help spread the word in case other insurance companies or more insurance companies start doing things like this. The local pilots may be coming to flight instructors and flight schools asking for people to sit in the other seat, and we just need to be careful how we handle that.
If I hear of anything from our insurance company, or I'm sure if Chevron's company starts doing stuff like this, I'm sure we'll communicate with everybody on here and we'll get ready for that wave when it hits.
I have heard of it, and it typically is beyond 75, 80 complex. That's where they start. I know of two people that have had the insurance company say that, but they've changed insurance companies and went ahead and got what they needed. So it's very limited at this point.
Okay. All righty, I'll keep moving on here. For those who know Ernie Copeland, he's our FAST team rep for the maintenance side of the house, FAST team program manager for the maintenance side of the house at the FSDO. And he's looking to potentially set up a hypoxia simulator, a nitrogen chamber, if you've heard of it. It's basically a plexiglass container we put people in and simulates getting hypoxia so you can experience your symptoms and therefore be better able to recognize them should they occur in flight. He's looking to set up kind of a large group session. And so in order to make this possible, we have to have several different schools or a large group kind of volunteer to do this. The cost is free. It'd be here for about a week or so, and the class runs about an hour per group. He's thinking the earliest this will probably happen is like January of 2023. But if you or your school is interested, if you can email Ernie Copeland, and I'll copy and paste his email address here in the chat if this thing will let her. Are you able to do that? 'Cause it's not.
I got it.
I'm sorry.
You got it? Okay. I just got it. My mouse wasn't cooperating, but
Okay.
I had a long chat with Ernie about this, and even actually had him come out to Goodyear and talk to the FBO and the managers here, and he was hoping we could get something done here next year.
yeah. So email Ernie there at that email address if you're interested in doing that. He's collating those responses and that kind of feedback to see if we can do that, make it worthwhile. I guess it's a traveling group that comes out with the chamber, and you know, they like to run as many groups through in a short amount of time as possible to make it worthwhile. So, okay. Any other questions? I think at that point I finished the prepped stuff from my agenda or our agenda. Does anybody have any other topics they'd like to bring up and discuss?
So there was a question in the chat of what
Oh,
are
yeah.
the red markers on the practice area overlays, says 3,200 to surface and such. Off the top of my head, are they talking about the aerobatic areas? Let me pull up my, actually, I don't have my iPad handy.
Hang on, I got mine. Hang on.
No, it's just the things that say like the red markers, like all over all the practice areas, 3,200, 4,500 to surface, 3,900 to surface, just the red waypoints. They're not.
I think those might be the final approach courses of common instrument, practice instrument approaches.
Yes, that's what it is. I'm looking
I
at it now.
see. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think we purposely didn't really label them with a lot of detail. Obviously, maybe we should, just because we don't expect non-instrument pilots to understand practice approaches.
That's the approach for probably.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep. Cool. Good question. Any other questions out there?
I don't think I missed anyone. A couple comments related to this discussion about Rainbow Valley, but we'll leave that to the working group. I think the questions have all been put out there. So.
Okay.
Cool.
For those who are interested, is there a DPE meeting after this? I think there is, right?
No, look at your next bullet item.
I see that there is there are DPE meetings planned in the foreseeable future, but nothing.
There are. Oh, okay. I apologize, Brent. I have a typo. That should say there are no DPE.
No,
meetings.
okay, all right.
I missed the word no. Amazing how that changes the meaning. All right. Well, since I was able to be here today, let me go ahead and give everyone the quick story. So Phil Remmel has retired from leading the local DPE group, formerly known as AZDPEAG, which was Arizona DPE Advisory Group. And no one has volunteered to take his place to lead the group. And we did a survey of the 55 DPEs that are in Arizona or the Scottsdale-Fisdo jurisdiction. And I think we had about 2/3 response rate on the survey, which I thought was pretty good. And more than half said that they would like to end the group and not even have a DPE group organized in Arizona and not even worry about having regular meetings. I certainly have my own feelings about it, but that's basically the majority has spoken, and of the minority of us that wanted to have a group like that, nobody has stepped up to say that they want to keep it going. So for the foreseeable future, there are no DPE meetings. If the FSDO wants to organize something, they certainly may. In the meantime, the AFTW, these meetings is probably the best place to bring questions related to practical tests. I'm here as a DP that does private instrument commercial. I don't do multi, I don't do CFI, I don't do double I. So I'm not qualified to comment on those, but at least for private instrument commercial, I'm happy to chime in. And what are you laughing at?
Jakey's.
I'll
put that out
manage
there.
it.
I couldn't hold back.
So John, you're saying you're happy to do it?
I'll do it if they make me a DPE.
Oh,
Sure.
I got you. If they make you a DP, you'll do it. There you go. There you go. Well, yeah, I don't mind telling you guys that, more than a couple people tapped me on the shoulder, and I'm sticking to my guns that if there's going to be a DP group like the one John Walkup first set up back 2002, I think it was, my personal belief is it needs to be someone who is a highly experienced DPE that is qualified to do CFI check rides, basically be able to qualified to do all check rides, including multi and CFI. So I do not believe I'm qualified to lead that group, and I'm sticking to that. And if no one else that has those qualifications wants to have a group like that going right now, then it is what it is. But no meetings to answer that question. And I apologize again for the typo on the agenda.
Cool. No worries. Okay, well, I guess there is no DPE meeting after this. So our next AFTW Zoom meeting is going to be on Tuesday, September 13th at 1 o'clock. So you'll see a SPANS meeting get published about that. And you can already register for the next meeting if you go to aftw.org /next-meeting. And I think copy and paste this link in there.
That brings up a question real quick, Brent.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to answer it right now, but so the last two meetings of this year are on the list. People can register now if you aren't already. It's September 13th and November 8th. And this meeting being at this day and time was strategically designed to be right before the DPE meeting.
True.
Now that there is no DPE meeting, I mean, if anyone has a suggestion right now for a different day of the week or a different time of the day, you're welcome to speak up. You can also send me an email on that. I can tell you, after I got someone else to cover my airline trip today and I was able to be here, I was able to schedule a check ride on short notice, and I was tight on time to make it to this meeting. I'll just say that. So personally speaking, it would be convenient if this meeting was later in the day, so that I wasn't rushed after a check ride. But I don't know if anyone has any strong feelings of a different time of day or day of the week for these live Zoom meetings, drop me a note, or you can always do feedback at aftw.org. And but I say we stick with the plan for the next two meetings because it's already out there, it's already on the schedule. But basically, I'm just putting it out there that starting in January, I'm certainly open to having a different time or day or both.
Yeah, I would agree. We can move the time as need be. I think later in the day helps for Arizona pilots who, want to fly as much as they can in the morning time, and then afternoon is usually a little better for folks to make it into. But 1 is still pretty late in the day for us 5 a.m. early morning flyers. So, okay. Well, thank you guys for your time and participation. Look forward to seeing you guys at the next AFTW meeting. Thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Well done. Thanks, Brent.
Thank everybody.
Yes, thank you.